AFC Championship game 7 straight years, earning 5 Super Bowl appearances, including 3 straight to the big game ever since Patrick Mahomes became the starter. And perhaps last year's trip to the Super Bowl was the most surprising, given that the Chiefs seem to be living life on the edge. Their offense, middle of the road. Defense was really good, allowing under 20 points a game. They ranked 11th in point differential, and they had so many one-score games, but they went 11-0 in those last season. So let's take a look at the teams that are chasing KC and their offseason moves. Buffalo Bills, they signed Joey Bosa in the offseason. They took defensive players with their first 5 picks in the draft. Second time they've ever started a draft with 5 straight on defense. How about the Ravens? They take a similar path. Malachi Starks, first round. Pass rusher Mike Green led the FBS in sacks last year. 4 of their top 6 picks were on defense. And then the Bengals, they've gone the other way. They've leaned into the offense. They signed Chase and Higgins to long-term deals. We know that for the receivers. Last year, became the third duo with 200 receptions, 2,500 receiving yards, 25 touchdowns. Still, though, no signing for Trey Hendrickson. And the Chargers also opted for offense, drafting skill players with 4 of their first 6 picks, headlined by Carolina running back Omarion Hampton. In the first round, picked up Najee Harris. No surprise, those guys are going to try to run the football. Okay, so if you're the GM for one of these top AFC contenders, do you A, go all in on stopping Mahomes, or B, go all in on putting up as many points as possible? Tim, which strategy do you like best?
I'm going to try to stop Mahomes, and I actually think that's really not what you needed to do. I think a lot of people stopped Mahomes last year, and it was the defense that played great. But I just don't think what we're going to see out of Kansas City going forward is Mahomes and that offense struggling in future years the way they did this past year. Look, he's going to go down as one of the best quarterbacks of all time. His head coach and play caller is one of the best all time already. And so I just think that, if you play the long game of, okay, how do you dethrone Kansas City, in the AFC, I think it always is going to come down to stopping Patrick Mahomes. So, look, scoring points will be important all the time, all of that stuff. But, trying to go toe for toe to them, I think is a bad plan in the future.
Well, to your point, Tim, there's historical reference with building and bolstering your defense to give them the most problems. You think about the 2 Super Bowls that they've lost here recently. Obviously, Tampa Bay destroyed that offensive line. Kansas City went out that following year, did a lot free agency, and then came back strong. And then Philly this year. Not only do you have to get after Patrick Mahomes, they sacked him 6 times in this game, but they also picked him off twice. So bolstering your defense has proven to, at least in the big game, become a major factor in beating the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, to your point, Tim, they haven't been their best on offense, and they are going to get that figured out and put more weapons around Pat. But ultimately, that's the answer, as we see it right now, is to be able to get after him and turn the football over. And the 2 teams that won Super Bowls against him did it.
If they keep winning, we just get to keep seeing Darlington freezing there in sub-zero temperatures, which is really, really fun in the postseason. Yes. How are they feeling about their offseason, JD?
Not as cold as I will be. In fact, quite warm. They feel very good about it. That said, the offensive line does come with its share of questions, even with the adds that they have made through the draft and through free agency. So there is a little bit risk, but I think that Brett Veach, the general manager, is getting the benefit of the doubt here, rightfully so, given what he's done in the past. The one thing I'll say is that they understand that the point differential this season was such that you don't always win those games. You cannot just rely on winning every time in those situations. They know they have to create more separation if they're going to continue what they believe is the brink of a dynasty.
Okay. The brink of a dynasty. The Kansas City Chiefs are a dynasty. I don't know what we're going to pretend now. They were in 5 of the last 6 Super Bowls, winning 3. That is a dynasty. What do you mean the brink of a dynasty? Why do we have such weird definitions of dynasty? Okay. But what do I know? I'm just a Kansas City Chiefs hater. So, okay. This is an interesting one because I just don't know if you can really just force anyone to answer this question of what's better, defense or offense. It's all going to come down to who this team is right now in terms of the Kansas City Chiefs, because if their offense is lacking, then double, triple downing on defense makes sense because you're going to really disrupt them, right? If this offense really can't get going, and it was like struggling last year, it's like, yeah, if you can double, triple down on that, then you're going to come away with wins. But it doesn't mean that you don't need to score points either, because the Baltimore Ravens were able to slow down the Kansas City Chiefs offensively in the AFC Championship game, but they couldn't score more than 10 points. Make no mistake about it, the Eagles' defense disrupted the Kansas City Chiefs' offense, but they still needed to score points offensively. You know, there's absolutely a situation where the Eagles get shut down offensively, and then there we are. Right now, it's just going to be like a who's who type of game. But that's not what happened. Right, the Eagles were able to take advantage of the turnovers and then convert them to touchdowns. So not only did they absolutely, dominate defensively, but then offensively, they were able to put up point after point after point after point after point. Like that matters. Otherwise, you find yourself in a situation like you did in you're almost looking then like a Patriots versus Rams Super Bowl, or like I just said before, the Ravens versus the Chiefs AFC Championship game. But then you get kind of in a more high scoring game, and that's when the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs enter the conversation. So there is no one master plan to all of this. What's going to be fascinating is that the Chiefs are going to be exposed to pretty much all the different variations of it. Great defenses, great offenses, average offense, average defense, elite defense, average offense, elite offense, average defense. Like they're going to get all of the different variations throughout the regular season. So it will be interesting. I feel like you'll get a decent, I think you'll get probably a more accurate representation of who the Kansas City Chiefs are this regular season than you potentially did in years past, because you're going to get so many different versions of the different ways a team can really be constructed, and by teams that are actually like legit, right? Teams that are well run, have a great quarterback, great defensive coordinator, et cetera, et cetera. But the other thing is this, though. I think this is where it's so interesting, because to me, this also just gets so boiled down to the coaching mismatches, where if you have, let's just look at Spags and Andy. If your offense is lacking a little bit and you're struggling because of drops, because of injuries, whatever it may be, you're going up against worse defensive coordinators or defensive coaches relative to how great Andy Reid is as an offensive, head coach, offensive coordinator. And so that's how you're going to have a struggling offense, but still be able to hang 30 plus points on Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills, right? Like that's how you get there. Spags is such an elite defensive mind that, that you can go up against a great offense, but that, Spags being the defensive coordinator, I'll take him up against pretty much every offensive coordinator and pretty much every offensive head coach, minus maybe Sean McVay. Honestly, like I'm trying to think of some of the, I'm probably going to forget a couple off the top, but it's like, I'll take him as a defensive coordinator over, a lot of these other offensive, minus Andy Reid, really, and Sean McVay. So that's because also Spags now has such experience, obviously, and winning experience. I mean, just look what he did to the Patriots in the Super Bowl. That was such a historic offense that he just said, not today. That's legendary. That's what makes these teams, this Kansas City Chiefs team so resilient, combined with obviously Patrick Mahomes and, maybe not as much now, but Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, etc. But that's where they ran into trouble when you were looking at a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. Because now you have Fangio, who, listen, Andy Reid's a better offensive coach than Fangio is a defensive coordinator, but he's not outmatched. He's not outclassed, right? Fangio is an elite defensive mind. An elite defensive mind. I think he is more of an elite defensive mind than any of these other defensive head coaches. I will take Fangio's defensive mind over Sean McDermott or Harbaugh. So that's now where this is not necessary. It wasn't such a big mismatch in coaching. Experience-wise with Andy Reid, no doubt. But if this offense isn't going to be 100% potent, that's all someone Fangio needs. That's all he needs, and he's going to get after you, right? And then when you have an Eagles offense that is so good, and even though Spags, I think, is definitely a better defensive coordinator than, say, Kellen Moore is an offensive coordinator, that Philadelphia Eagles offense is just, I mean, it's just, stacked with weapons. You got Jalen Hurts, you got Saquon Barkley, you got AJ, Devontae, Dallas Goedert, right? Like, there's just such depth there and variety there. And, say what you will, but like Jalen Hurts steps up in the Super Bowl. This is how you kind of get this outcome here. This is how some of these games unfold. So, there is no necessarily master formula. And you can go all in all you want on defense or offense, but if you don't have the coaching staff to really pull the strings, that's what gets you in trouble. And I really think at the end of the day, the way how the Kansas City Chiefs have been able to consistently win in the AFC really gets boiled down to, I mean, I've said this a lot, but it's just like, to me, it's just as clear as day. It just is ultimately Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Spags. They are never out-coached. They are never at a coaching disadvantage. And the quarterback, even if he's not playing as great, or even if that offense is not firing at all cylinders and Patrick Mahomes isn't being the magical quarterback that we know, he's not putting them in a disadvantage either, right? You're not bringing out a quarterback like a Dak Prescott or someone who there is a true deficit that a great defensive coordinator is now going to expose you. Like it's just not going to be there. And they're not facing those defensive minds. When they do, it was like in a Super Bowl, and especially with the Eagles or even the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and then that's how you get what you get. So it's just, in terms of the AFC, I'm still looking at the coaching. Now, there's other coaches that I think are catching up that'll be there, and their teams will catch up too. Because it's not to say that it's just as long as you got Andy, Spags, and Mahomes, like you can just do whatever you want. Because we saw their offense not, but we could see them survive, right? Especially with a great defense. So for me, this season, I could see the Kansas City Chiefs taking a big step forward offensively. And then to me, the big question will be is what do they look defensively? They've been a great defensive team for for actually a big stretch of Mahomes' career, but definitely the last 2 years, this has been a very defensive forward team. Will that take a will they be as potent as they were? Especially because now a lot of their divisional games, those games once upon a time didn't really beat up the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs still may come away with wins, but like these games are probably going to be brutal. I really believe playing against the Chargers, the Broncos, the Raiders, even if the Chiefs go 6-0 against those three teams, those games are still going to beat them up so much more in years past. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Kansas City Chiefs unfold. But a lot of people are ready to bury them. I'm not. And I'm just kind of interested to see what's the next evolution of this team. And, right now, I just think they'll take a big step forward offensively and potentially a half step back defensively. And so where does that leave them? Honestly, I don't know. Definitely not trash. Maybe not as good as they were in, say, 2019 or something. But that's why to me it comes down to then coaching, right? When push comes to shove, it's the fourth quarter, 7 minutes to go. Sean McDermott has to call up a defensive play. Andy Reid has to call up an offensive play. I know who I'm trusting in that situation every single time. I'm not even going to say 99 out of 100. 100% of the time. 100% of the time. That is the biggest, most massive advantage that the Kansas City Chiefs consistently have year after year after year. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Kansas City Chiefs and the collection of teams looking to dethrone them and get after them? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.